The general who won every battle and still lost the war. Imagine being the greatest battlefield tactician the ancient world has ever produced. You've crossed a mountain range no one thought an army could survive. You've beaten the most powerful military in the Mediterranean not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. And the third time, you don't just beat them, you nearly wipe them off the map in a single afternoon. 50,000 of their men dead before sundown. And 17 years later, you're the one begging your own government for peace. That is the story of Hannibal Barca. And the strange part isn't that he lost, it's how he lost. Because on paper, he never should have. So here's what this video is actually about. Most people know the broad strokes. Hannibal, elephants, the Alps, Rome, almost falls. What most people don't know is exactly how close almost really was, and exactly why a general who is still studied in military academies today, a man who never lost a major battle against Rome on Italian soil, walked away from the Second Punic War with nothing. We're going to walk through the campaign, the battle that should have ended the war, the decision Rome made that broke every rule of ancient warfare, and the quiet reason Hannibal spent over a decade winning fights. That didn't matter. And I'll save the ending for last, because what happens to Hannibal personally, years after the war is already lost, is almost more brutal than anything that happens on a battlefield. Let's start with the crossing, because the war is already costing him before it even begins. It's 218 BC. Hannibal is roughly 29 years old, and he makes a decision that no one in Rome is prepared for. Instead of meeting Rome at sea, where their navy dominates, he's going to march an army, including war elephants, overland, through the Alps in the fall. The crossing is a disaster before it's a triumph. Ancient accounts describe brutal ambushes from hostile mountain tribes, men and pack animals lost to sheer cliffs and early snow, and a force that arrives in Italy, a fraction of the size it left Spain with. Most of the elephants don't survive the journey. This is the part that gets skipped in the highlight reel. Hannibal is already down, men, animals, and supplies, before he's fought a single Roman soldier. And then, he starts winning anyway. First, it's the Trebia, a river battle where he lures the Romans into a freezing crossing and ambushes them on the other side. Then, Lake Trasimene, where he hides his entire army along a fog-covered lakeshore and annihilates a Roman army that doesn't even realize it's surrounded until it's too late. An entire consular army effectively erased in a single morning. 2 Roman armies gone. Rome should be terrified. Rome is terrified. But Rome doesn't ask for peace. And that detail matters more than it seems like it should, because it sets up everything that follows. Then comes Cannae. This is the one military academies still teach. In 216 BC, Rome throws its largest army yet at Hannibal, somewhere in the range of 80,000 men, an enormous force by ancient standards. Hannibal has fewer troops, so he does something that shouldn't work. He deliberately weakens his own center, letting the Roman legions push forward and punch a hole straight through his line. It looks for a moment like his army is collapsing. It isn't. As the Romans surge into that gap, Hannibal's flanks, his stronger, more experienced troops, close in from both sides. His cavalry, which has already routed the Roman cavalry on the wings, comes in from behind. The Roman army isn't just defeated. It's surrounded on all 4 sides, in a formation so complete that panicked men reportedly couldn't even lift their arms to fight back in the crush of their own soldiers. Somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 Romans are dead by the end of the day. One of the worst single-day military losses in history, ancient or modern. If you were writing this as fiction, this is where the war ends. The capital undefended. The enemy's best army gone. And Hannibal's own cavalry commander reportedly urged him to march on Rome immediately, while the city had nothing left to defend itself with. Hannibal doesn't march on Rome, and historians still argue about why, whether he lacked the siege equipment to actually take a heavily fortified city, whether he judged the risk too high, or whether he was waiting for allies to defect to him first. Whatever the reason, that hesitation is the hinge point of the entire war. Because here's what Rome does instead of surrendering. Nothing that makes sense by the rules of the era. In most ancient conflicts, a defeat on the scale of Cannae means the losing side sues for peace. Rome refuses to even open negotiations. Instead, the Senate does something almost irrational on the surface. It starts raising new armies, again and again. Rome has a deep bench of Italian manpower that Hannibal doesn't have access to, and it simply keeps replacing what he destroys. This is also where a Roman general named Fabius Maximus enters the story, and his strategy is, at the time, considered borderline cowardly. He refuses to meet Hannibal in open battle at all. Instead, he shadows Hannibal's army, cuts off supply lines, harasses stragglers, and refuses the kind of decisive engagement that made Cannae possible. Roman citizens mock him for it. He earns the nickname Cunctator, the delayer, as an insult. It takes years before people realize the delay strategy is exactly what's grinding Hannibal down. You can win every battle he offers you and still lose if you simply refuse to offer him the battle he needs. And Hannibal's other plan, the one his whole invasion depended on, quietly fails in the background. His strategy was never really destroy Rome's army. It was peel Rome's allies away, city by city, until Rome stands alone. Some cities in southern Italy do defect, but most of central Italy, the core of Rome's alliance network, stays loyal, even after Cannae. Without that mass defection, Hannibal has battlefield victories and nowhere to spend them. So what does he actually have at this point? An undefeated army, stuck in enemy territory with a home government that isn't sending him what he needs. This is the part that rarely makes it into the highlight reel, and it's arguably the real reason the war is lost. Hannibal spends roughly 15 years total in the field, and for most of that time in Italy, Carthage's political leadership sends him minimal reinforcement and minimal funding. He is fighting a war of logistics and attrition against the deepest manpower reserves in the Mediterranean, using an army he can't easily replace, backed by a government that seems to have half committed to the fight. His tactical genius is real. It's also completely disconnected from the thing that actually decides ancient wars: who can keep fielding armies the longest. And then Rome does the move that finally ends it. Instead of continuing to fight Hannibal where he is strongest, Italy, on ground he studied for years, a Roman general named Scipio takes the war somewhere else entirely. First Spain, stripping away Carthage's territory and resources there. Then, directly, North Africa. Carthage itself is suddenly under threat. Carthage's government, panicking, does something that undercuts Hannibal completely. They recall him, pull him out of Italy, a theater where he is, by most accounts, still undefeated, to come home and defend the capital. The general, who spent over a decade proving Rome couldn't beat him on his terms, is ordered back to fight on someone else's. At Zama, in 202 BC, Hannibal faces Scipio directly for the first and only time. And here's the detail that makes this ending land the way it does. Scipio has spent years studying Hannibal's tactics. He specifically designs his formation to counter the very maneuvers that made Cannae so devastating, leaving lanes for Hannibal's elephant charge to pass harmlessly through his ranks instead of smashing his line. The student beats the teacher using the teacher's own lesson plan. Hannibal loses his only major battle of the entire war, and it's the one that decides everything. Carthage sues for peace. The terms are brutal, and Hannibal, the undefeated general, goes home to a city that has already lost. Here's the part I promised you at the start, the one that's almost harder to sit with than the military defeat itself. Hannibal doesn't get to quietly retire. Rome doesn't forget him. Years after the war ends, still viewed as a threat by Roman politicians, he's forced into exile, moving from court to court across the eastern Mediterranean, always a step ahead of Roman pressure to have him handed over. Eventually, cornered in the kingdom of Bithynia, with Roman soldiers closing in to capture him, Hannibal takes poison rather than be taken alive. Think about that for a second. A man who marched elephants across the Alps, who annihilated 3 Roman armies, who was never once beaten in open battle by the empire that eventually conquered the known world. And his actual end isn't a battlefield at all. It's a small vial in a foreign court. Decades after the war he should have won was already lost. Because tactics were never the thing that was going to save him. Politics, logistics, and a government back home that couldn't keep up with its own general were. So, who actually loses the Second Punic War? Not the man who outfought Rome in every meeting on Italian soil. It's Carthage, the state that couldn't turn his brilliance into anything lasting. Hannibal wins almost every battle history remembers him for, and it still isn't enough, because war was never just the battles he was winning. If you want to see what happens on the other side of the story, how Rome actually built the empire that could survive losing 70,000 men in a single day and still come back, there's a video right here that gets into it. Go watch that next. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit the button so you don't miss what's coming. And let me know in the comments. Do you think Hannibal should have marched on Rome after Cannae? I'll be reading them.